The two great operatic ladies who are our intermission guests this afternoon need no introduction to opera lovers. Supreme in their art, they are known the world over. The dramatic soprano, Birgit Nielsen, and the coloratura soprano, Joan Sutherland. They have graciously accepted an invitation to appear on this program to discuss and demonstrate for us technical terms of the art of singing. Mr. Jan Baer, an assistant conductor at the Metropolitan, is at the piano, ready to accompany Miss Sutherland and Miss Nielsen. Another expert in the world of opera, Edward Downes, is also with us today. I don't think Mr. Downes needs much introduction either, so will you please take over, Mr. Downes?
Thank you, Mr. Cross. There's a tremendous amount of excitement and a kind of suspense, too, in our recording studio here this afternoon, and I should say a good deal of awe. All of us here feel it, the director, the engineers, and the musicians, not because Miss Nilsson and Miss Sutherland are either forbidding or haughty prima donnas, but because they are artists in the grand manner. Their lyric talent would be considered exceptional in any time or place in the whole history of opera. As individuals, as people, they're hardworking and dedicated, respectful of the gifts lavished on them. And when they're not working, studying, or performing, but among family and friends, they're warm, charming, quick to laugh, and not at all given to postures. There's none of this sort of archaic prima donna ritual of sweeping into a room like royalty that can make some people freeze to immediate attention or sink into obsequious attitudes. They are royal in a fine sense, and without peers by virtue of their own accomplishments. They're here today as guests of Opera News on the Air because we've told them how much these Texaco Metropolitan Opera broadcasts mean to you, our listeners. And we know this because of the letters you write us. And what is particularly gratifying and satisfying to us, beside all the important assurance that you enjoy the operas, is your eagerness to add to your musical knowledge. And that's why Miss Nilsson and Miss Sutherland are here, to help you add to your musical knowledge. And the specific subject we've chosen for them today is one a great many of you have asked about. It's vocal terminology. Now, vocal terminology is simply the language the composer uses, the means he uses to tell the singer how he wants his music sung. And then, how a singer reads and understands the composer's language is largely a matter of personal taste, artistic training, and so on. It's what determines, as much as anything else, her or his individuality, her own artistic personality, and this is also what we mean by interpretation. Miss Sutherland and Miss Nilsson, would you go along with this very, very broad definition of what seems to be, in my opinion, the character, the essence of interpretation?
In a certain sense, yes. We should make every effort to carry out the composer's wishes. However, sometimes traditions make it very difficult. For example, if a great and popular singer of the past has pleased an audience by singing a phrase or even a note entirely in his own way, ignoring the composer, the public almost expect us to do the same.
Well, yes, that's quite true, Birgit, dear. But, of course, in the bel canto repertoire, we have a good deal of freedom. Every composer of the early 19th century, and even earlier, beginning with Mozart himself, made it clear that we were to take over on our own in any way we pleased. This applied not only to singers, of course, but to instrumentalists as well in their own pieces.
But it was mainly for the interpolated parts where a singer made up her own music, especially for your kind of wonderful fireworks, Joan.
But apart from the interpolations, a composer will very often write over a phrase the two words a piacere, which means roughly at the singer's pleasure. Though the notes and the tempi are generally indicated, we can sing the particular passage in whichever way we feel best conveys the dramatic intent.
Exactly. And Miss Nilsson and Miss Sutherland have chosen examples of these things for you to hear. Will you describe your first example for us, Miss Nilsson?
Certainly. There's a good example in O Patria Mia, Aida's famous third act aria. Incidentally, in that one aria, there are so many of the vocal terms we want to talk about, but a piacere, at the singer's pleasure, as you say, it comes at the very beginning.
That's very beautiful, Miss Nilsson. Now, please tell us what you have chosen, Miss Sutherland, for A Piacere.
Well, most conductors tell me I always sing A Piacere, Mr. Downs, but I'll sing you a little bit of Sonnambula.
Now I think that we might explain and illustrate some of the more common vocal terms. And what comes immediately to mind are two, namely legato and staccato. They belong together for our purposes because they're opposites. The Italian word staccato means literally detached or broken, and legato means tied together or unbroken. To indicate staccato, a dot or sort of period is placed on top of the note, and this is the way it's most often indicated. To indicate legato, a long curved line is drawn over all the notes to be sung, like an arch. Miss Nilsson has chosen a legato excerpt, a very famous one, that couldn't possibly express the compassion and the anguish intended if the notes were sung staccato. Miss Nilsson, without telling our audience first what it is, would you try to sing that in the wrong way, staccato?
Oh, must I do that?
Well, please try very hard for us.
Okay. But now I must sing it the right way.
Now, please tell the audience about your legato choice, Miss Sutherland.
Well, I have one that, like Birgit's Isolde, couldn't possibly be sung staccato.
All right, Miss Sutherland. Well.
I thought you'd be surprised.
Well, it was beautiful, but I'd like to ask you to do my favorite legato piece out of the whole literature, and that, as you might guess, is the Casta Diva from Bellini's Norma. Would you do that for us?
Well, I'll try. Now, I think it'd be amusing to give an example of staccato alternating with legato. Perhaps as in this tiny piece of Caro Nome.
And now Miss Nilsson will sing a little piece from the Masked Ball, combining staccato and legato at the same time. We have a whole lot of other vocal terms to discuss here. Messa di voce, not to be confused with mezza voce. Fil di voce, portamento, scooping, trill, vibrato, tremolo, voce bianca, attacco. Which one out of all of these would you like to take on next?
Why not portamento? That's a form of legato.
Fine, but only if you will illustrate that bit of phrasing called scooping. In other words, the right and beautiful portamento, and also the wrong kind of portamento. The literal meaning of portamento, of course, is carrying one note to the next without a break in the voice. And if those two notes are from the low register into the high, one shouldn't really hear a break where the change of registers is. It's sort of gliding into the note. You'll have no trouble distinguishing a portamento from a scoop, I think. In speaking, I guess the closest thing to scooping would be slurring. Miss Sutherland, would you go first, please?
I don't mind. I'll sing the beginning of A Forse Lui, Traviata's first act aria. There's one portamento after another.
Now, Miss Sutherland, I know it goes against your grain artistically, but would you change all those beautiful portamentos into awful scoops?
Why?
Please.
Oh, that's terrible.
Oh, come on, Birgit. I think you should give us a big dramatic scoop.
I will. I can prepare with one. It's the end of Visidarte.
That was a marvelous scoop, Miss Nilsson. And now, show us the way you really do it in performance, the right way. We haven't time, I'm sorry to say, for much more. Which vocal term do you think we should explore next?
I would like very much to hear John's trill.
And I would like to hear Birgit's fil di voce, the beautiful one you do, Birgit, in the Nile scene in Aida.
Well, we all would, and that's a prize understatement. Let's go back for just a moment to something quite important I did forget in relation to scooping. We illustrated the scooping from one note to another, but how about scooping into a high note that begins a phrase? A word often used is attacco, the attack, the note being hit right in the middle. To sneak up on it or slip into it is another one of those bad habits of scooping, and it certainly can kill the tremendous dramatic effect when the phrase is attacked brilliantly. It can sound, properly done, just like a bolt out of the blue. And there should be some wonderful ones in Turandot, Miss Nilsson.
Yes, I think I know which plays you mean. It is Straniero Ascolta in the second act, just before the riddles.
Exactly. That's really spine-chilling, Miss Nilsson. But, you know, there is another attack that I especially love, and that's in the third act of Siegfried, just after Brynhilde's awakening, when Siegfried tells her who he is, and she's overwhelmed with thankfulness, and she says, Heil euch, Götter, and she goes on to express her ecstasy at what is happening to her.
Oh, I will be glad to sing this too.
Thank you, Miss Nilsson. Miss Sutherland, I know you must have some marvelous ones, too, perhaps from your repertory of all those marvelous mad ladies.
Well, they don't all have to be mad, you know. In Rossini, one needs great attack. And here are two little bits from his Semiramide.
How about what seems to me the most difficult feat of all, at least along with the trill? The messa di voce. That's so horribly difficult because it requires absolutely perfect breath control. I think it's 1,000 times more hazardous for the artist than to sing right out in full voice. Or am I wrong?
You just couldn't be more right. But first you explain it so our audience won't get confused with mezza voce while I get out my scores, huh?
Yes, well, mezza voce, spelled M-E-Z-Z-A, means half. In other words, singing with half the voice. Wouldn't you do us a little phrase, Miss Sutherland, anything that comes to mind, with first full voice and then this half voice, a mezza voce?
Well, I'll do part of the aria from Handel's Julius Caesar, Vadoro Pupille.
That was lovely, Miss Sutherland. But you know, I knew I'd forgotten something. I suppose it's due to the awe or the excitement I told you we all feel here in the studio. But a while back, we were talking about Portamento, and I asked you both to do scoops. And we had Miss Nilsson's wonderful, awful scoop, but we didn't have her beautiful Portamento. Miss Nilsson, I know, is always gracious and helpful, and perhaps for her Portamento, she would sing us the beautiful phrase that begins the Vici d'arte. That was marvelous. We talk a lot about trills. Trill is a very common word, but one of the rarest and most exciting things in the singer's art. A true trill is a quick alternation of two separate notes. It's tremendously difficult, and even among the greatest singers, it's extremely rare. The most famous of all Italian teachers of the bel canto age, Tosi, wrote that if a singer had nothing else, a perfect trill would be enough for the most brilliant performance. Miss Sutherland, would you give us an example of your trill, if you please?
Well, there are all kinds of trills, Mr. Downs, so I'll show you one or two. First of all, there's the trill which is attacked immediately without preparation, as in this cadenza from Ophelia's mad scene in Hamlet. Then there's what we call the prepared trill. I'll sing it and you'll see what I mean. It's the moment in Tales of Hoffmann when Antonia dies. And there are so many more.
Now, aside from all these specific technical terms, I'm thinking of places in the score where the composer has limited himself to writing down notes and tempi with a minimum of indications as to how the voice should be used for dramatic purpose. Miss Nilsson, I've heard a wonderful record you made, a Lady Macbeth sleepwalking scene from Verdi's opera, and it seemed to me there were places there that illustrate this just beautifully. Would you take a passage from that and sing it with the piano for us?
Well, let me sing it first, just the way it is written in the score. And now, let me sing it again. Mind you, it is still the same notes, but with a purposeful dramatic effect.
Now, for that messa di voce, Miss Sutherland. I'm sorry, Miss Sutherland. I've just got the signal that our time is up. And we never did get around to either the messa di voce or vibrato or tremolo or appoggiatura, voce bianca, and endless other terms. So I hope we can persuade our two great and gracious ladies to come back again.